How you doing, Dr. Phipps? My name is Herbert Little, and I'm here to do my assignment, my journal assignment on Boardwalk Empire. Boardwalk Empire is a hit HBO television show, which is produced and written by Terrence Winters, the guy that brought the world The Sopranos. Basically, Boardwalk Empire is about Atlantic City during the Prohibition era, and it narrows in on Nucky Thompson and just some of the things he was involved in, some of the people he met, and so on. The first episode I watched, every episode I watched was from season one. The first episode was episode two, entitled The Ivory Towers, which I viewed February 25th, Saturday at 3 a.m. Basically, one of Nucky's associates, Jimmy Darmody, hijacked a shipment of liquor that was supposed to be sent to Arnold Rothstein, but that went totally wrong. Someone got killed, and that raises suspicion of Prohibition agents of Nucky Thompson, making Nucky's whole illegal operation become hot, and also making a feud between Nucky and Arnold Rothstein. In our textbook, written by Stanley J. Barron and Dennis K. Davis, The Mass Communication Theory, 6th edition, I found a source, February 26, 2012, on page 8, called Causality, the relationship between an event and a second event, where the second event is understood as a consequence of the first. Basically, if Jimmy would have never, ever, ever robbed or hijacked any shipment, Nucky would have never received the heat being on him by the Prohibition agents. So that caused Nucky to have uh, problems with the law, federal law, because of Jimmy's actions. I also noticed that Jimmy and Nucky end up having type of their relationship had a dent in it, and you can see that throughout the episode. They were close, but all of a sudden they started getting strong away from each other. Episodes 3, Broadway Limited, I view March 3rd, Saturday at 3 a.m. Jimmy found out a witness of the hijacking survived and was able to ID him. And also, Nucky Thompson finds a new bootlegger, Chalky White, which is an African American. And because of Chalky White's new success, one of his men were lynched because someone was jealous and they thought it was Chalky White, but it was actually his associate. In our textbook by Barron and Davis, The Mass Communications Theory, 6th edition, page 166, I accessed March 4th, 2012. It shows me that this television show, and specifically this episode, gives a great example of elite pluralism. The theory viewing a society as composed of interlocking pluralistic groups led by opinion leaders who rely on the media for information about a politic and social world. Basically, you can see in this episode, you have leaders like Chalky White, who is a leader of the African Americans. A lot of African Americans look up to him. And then you also have leaders like Nucky Thomas, an Irishman, also a Republican, that he has two social groups really looking up to him as well. So this shows to give you an example of how America is basically a country filled with different groups, but at the end of the day, when we all come together, we're Americans. But at the same time, we're very elite pluralistic society. In this episode, I also noticed that Nucky and Jimmy, just watching it, I felt that Nucky and Jimmy's relationship just went down the drain. Nucky sends Jimmy off to Chicago, where Jimmy just leaves his wife and kids, and Nucky tells him to never return again. Episode 4, entitled Anastasia, which I viewed March 10th, 2012, Saturday at 3 a.m. Jimmy gets situated in Chicago, and also in this episode, Nucky and Chalky looks for a Klan member because they believe the Ku Klux Klan lynched one of Chalky's associates, when really Chalky tortures the Klan member and comes to find out that he did not lynch his associate. In Barron and Davis's Mass Communication Theory, 6th edition, page 35, which I accessed March 11, 2012, it talks about a concept called the framing theory, which is assertion that people use exceptions of the social world to make sense of that social world. So basically, Nucky and Chalky, being in the world they live in at the moment, automatically believe that it had to be a Klan member to lynch Chalky White's black associate, which would be the case in a lot of situations, but this time the Ku Klux Klan had nothing to do with that murder. All I can remember is thinking to myself that I know that the Ku Klux Klan is definitely going to retaliate on Chalky White, i.e., which happened later on season 2. Actually, the first episode, they come and just kill a lot of Chalky White's associates and try to shut down his business. Episode 5, the final episode I watched, is entitled Knights Bally Grand, which I viewed March 17th, Saturday at 3 a.m. Nucky throws his annual St. Patrick's Day celebration, and Nucky kind of has some type of love interest with a widower named Margaret Stroder, and she becomes involved in the women's temperance movement, and Mrs. Stroder is trying to get Nucky's attention and let Nucky know that liquor is being moved illegally across the street from her house, but Nucky just brushes her off pretty much, and she gets upset with that. So she goes to Van Alden, the prohibition agent, and tells everything that she knows about the liquor being moved. And Van Alden comes and shuts down Nucky's St. Patrick's Day celebration, which has tons of liquor there. In the book, our textbook, Barron and Davis, The Mass Communication Theory, 6th edition, on page 127, which I accessed March the 18th, 2012. It talks about a term entitled revolutionary concept. A normative theory describes a system in which media are used in the series of revolutions. Basically, during the women temperance movement, even depicted in the show and in real life, during the 1920s, a lot of women used a lot of propaganda to influence the world and the government, showing how bad liquor was for America. For instance, I have the Ken Burns documentary entitled Prohibition that I accessed on May 20th, 2012. Here's the documentary if you wanted to see it. Ken Burns, Prohibition. And basically in the documentary, it gives examples of how women use propaganda, like on the television show Boardwalk Empire, just making cartoons, just depicting men drinking liquor, making fun of them, also showing pictures of poor children in newspapers saying their fathers and mothers were alcoholics and now they don't have a place to stay, things of that nature. I also noticed in this episode that Nucky was more vulnerable and he allowed himself to be vulnerable around Mrs. Stroder because he confessed his love. So that was interesting to see this tough guy have emotions. In conclusion, Baron Davis's Mass Communication Theory textbook on page 148, which I accessed March 29, 2012, talks about the limited effect perspective, basically saying that the media has no effect on or minimal effect on society. Basically, I agree with that to a certain extent because the effects that this show had on me was it made me want to become a writer and produce shows of this nature, and also it's changed my whole outlook on the Prohibition era. So I feel like it has affected me, but in a positive way. So in conclusion, I just believe that Boardwalk Empire is a phenomenal show and has a lot of great aspects as far as that we talk about in class, and maybe you should utilize it for, I guess, as a tool or a source to teach one of your lessons. Thank you, Dr. Phipps. Bye.